hold on. Let's not interrupt a black trans woman when she's speaking. Leah Thomas got 5th place.
But you do interrupt.
I know, to put devil's advocate, you guys interrupted a million times.
So
when
much
the black
more.
trans, when the only black person is on set, when the only black person's on
What
set,
does that matter?
I think that we should prioritize the black voice here.
No,
So I'm
I
just
know, I don't agree with that.
No, if you say that we're all
we being
women and we're all
racist?
equal, then
I don't
why
care.
Racist today?
Then why would you be
But that's not fair.
black?
Oh my goodness. You being black has nothing to do with a goddamn thing. I came across this YouTube video where trans women and conservative women sat down and had, I don't know necessarily if this was a debate, but a conversation that have to do with the trans issues going on in America, the country, the world at the current moment. Let's see how this goes. I don't have much hope because I saw Blossom was on the thumbnail, and yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Womanhood is defined by biology.
So my take on the whole womanhood is defined by biology is I just kind of feel like the debate is very redundant. I mean, you can say like, oh, trans women aren't biological women, but then also still say you should still treat them as women and we should still be treated as, you know, just a normal woman. I mean, like I said, the whole point of going back and forth of this terminology, it's just, there's no real point.
I kind of feel the same way. Like, I just have a very different viewpoint on what womanhood encapsulates, like in terms of like everything. I think it's very, I just don't think it's right to like make snap judgments like that about a situation that maybe you don't know like what my experience in womanhood is.
I believe from the second I was born as a woman to when I die as a woman, that entire journey, as difficult and beautiful as it is mine. So it's always going to be different. But I believe every step of the way is affected by the fact that I was born a woman, I'm a woman, and I think it's very beautiful and sacred, and I would just never want that to be something that someone could just claim, I guess. So yeah, I think my whole journey will be because I'm a woman.
Well, what if I told you that's my experience?
I'd have to disagree with that. I have lived a woman experience, but you never truly have had a lived experience as a woman. You have to think about biology, chromosomes, hormones. You can't discount biology.
Absolutely. Trans women are and will always be biologically male. There's nothing you can do, no magic wand you can wave to alter that or change that. And that's the thing that I think we're missing here. And to say that trans women are women, I think does a disservice to trans people in general. Because if I were not biologically male, I would not be trans. Trans women are trans women, and that's okay.
But how could you truly know what it is to have a lived experience as a woman if you weren't born as a woman?
Yeah, how could you know what my experience is as a woman if you've never been in my shoes?
But you don't
But I've
also
been
know,
a woman my whole life.
but respectfully, you also don't know what it's like to be a trans woman.
I never really agree with Blossom, but I want to talk about the fact that she said that, you know, the conservative women do not understand what it's like to be trans. And that's very true. I think a lot of times, like, people who are not trans do sometimes make snap judgments or don't really understand, I guess, what it's like to be trans. So best way I can describe this, if you are a biological woman or a biological man, I want you to envision yourself with the same brain that you have now, but like opposite sex, and how off that would feel. That's essentially what trans people feel like. What we do is, you know, transition socially to alleviate some of that gender dysphoria. I mean, essentially most of us, it's always going to be there, but transitioning does alleviate some of those like symptoms. I do really think that we as trans women need to understand and respect biology, to realize that we are not genetic women, we are not biological women, we are a category of something in between, I guess you would say. I don't really know how to describe it, but we are not and will never be biological women. And I think that a lot of trans people don't like to hear that.
I just think that certain groups, certain people love to use the conversation around biology, but we don't want to talk about the nuances of biology. Absolutely. There are some women, some cis women, who look more masculine than trans women. And does that take away from their womanhood? So I really think that we really have to open up and expand and broaden on what it is to be a woman.
Imagine being a biological male sitting across from a bunch of biological women and trying to tell them what womanhood is or what a woman is. You're telling the people who are women what a woman is. And that's the part that a lot of conservatives and a lot of women are having a problem with. It's trans women who are biologically male stepping on the toes of actual women. It is so misogynistic that I can't even begin to explain this to you in a way that a man is telling a woman what a woman is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you that I don't understand your lived experience because I've never lived an experience as a man. Or
I'm not living an experience
a
as a man,
trans
friend.
person.
And I just want to be clear to everybody in this room
low vibration.
that I was invited here as a woman. So if we're going to engage in a conversation with each other, I would appreciate the respect of being talked to as a woman for this conversation. You don't have to agree, but I'm not going to be in here and being talked to that way.
The way that triggered such a aggressive response from Stassi is crazy, because basically what that conservative woman was saying was she's never had a lived experience as a man. And I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you ladies, but before you transitioned, like, your lived experience was as a man, okay? So maybe in your head, you know, you were trans, but outwardly, societally, you lived an experience as a man. So basically, that's what she's getting at, is the fact that she will never understand what it's like to have lived experience as a man because she has never done it. I don't know why this is such a sore topic, though, for some of you. The way Stassi had to let everybody know that she was invited there as a woman. Who are you trying to convince, babe? It seems like you're trying to convince yourself because you are that insecure in your womanhood. You're that insecure as a trans woman that anything that, you know, alludes to the fact that you are biologically male or born a man is so uber upsetting to you. And I can't figure out why, because without being born biologically male, you wouldn't be trans. So why is that such a sore topic for you?
Trans women should be included in women's sports.
First of all, I would say trans women are women. They're not men. I understand what you're saying. You're probably talking about cis men and cis women. Bodies are different. I totally agree with that. I am a personal believer that trans women do not have a competitive edge. We have trans athletes like Leah Thomas who won 5th place in swimming. She didn't win 1st place. And the thing is, when it comes to trans athletes, their hormone levels have to be at a certain level to be able to participate in the first place. And a lot of the controversy with Leah Thomas was she tied in 5th place with Riley Gaines, who I'm not too fond of myself. And so it was this whole conversation around, can trans women have this competitive edge? Absolutely not. Why do conservative women not give trans men the same flag that they give trans women in sports? I would love to know the answer to that question.
Blossom, let me answer that for you. It's because trans men are biologically female. Okay, so they are going to inherently have a disadvantage against biological men in any sports. So no one's going to complain about that except the trans men, being that they are at a disadvantage. The thing is this whole Leah Thomas argument. Number one, Leah Thomas, when competing with males, was like 400 and something. But when competing with women, was number 5. And obviously there are nuance to these topics in the sense of, like, yeah, there are going to be biological women who are just better inherently skill-wise than a biological man. The average trans woman is always going to beat out a biological woman. It is just fact, okay? And the thing is, I want all of these trans women, okay, to stand up. And I want them to be measured side by side next to the conservative women. They are just inherently bigger. And I'm not talking about fat-wise. I'm talking they're inherently bigger than them. Their arms are bigger. Their wingspan is bigger. All of these things play into advantages in sports. And I just think it is unfair to have a trans woman competing against a biological
For
woman.
me, I grew up playing sports. Water polo was my thing. And even now, like I do martial arts, right? And so even in water polo, sometimes we would have to practice with the boys. And it was humbling to see the disparity between me as an 18-year-old girl, senior year on varsity, versus a 12 to 14-year-old boy. And that's not because I sucked. That's because they're growing muscles, and there's just, when it comes down to it, you can't fight that biology. And so when I see, the argument that trans individuals should participate in women's sports specifically, and to answer your question, why are trans women targeted so much, is because trans men are not going to be winning athletic competitions against biological men, right? Biological women are the ones.
I disagree with that. Patricio, what was Patricio's last name?
It is about
He's won a couple of
900
boxing matches against cis men. Patricio Emmanuel, I think that's his last name.
But that's few and far between, right? And so when we're thinking about somebody, especially after they've gone through puberty, they have the muscle mass of a biological man, they have the lung capacity of a biological man, they have the bone density of a biological man.
Everybody's
In a lot
science,
of
everybody's body
scenarios-
chemistry is actually different. You cannot actually measure the size of somebody's heart, somebody's lungs to be able to determine that. There are some cis women who have a higher agility than trans women because, again, Leah Thomas only got 5th place. These trans women are not getting first place across the board.
There's many instances where trans women have beat out
Please
biological
name a
women,
few.
and that's a sad
I would love
story.
to. We would love to know those resources.
Well, you mentioned Leah Thomas. I know you said that Leah Thomas tied with Riley
She would
Gaines.
have got 438th if she was competing against other
and
men.
so that's what we're talking about when we say like those opportunities are taken. And I'm sure you believe that Leah Thomas should be in there, but that's one
So
spot
what
that
about
could
the
have
first
been
four
given to a
women that
biological
beat
woman.
Leah Thomas and Riley Gaines? So what about those women? They were cis women. They were biological women. They were not, excuse me, hold on. Let's not interrupt a black trans woman when she's speaking. Leah Thomas got 5th place.
But you do interrupt.
I know, to
Liz
her
has got this time.
devil's advocate. You guys interrupted a million times.
Interrupted so
when
much
the black
more.
trans, when the only black person is on set, when the only black person's on
What does
set,
that matter?
I think that we should prioritize the black voice here.
No,
So I'm
I
just
know, I
saying.
don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
If you
Also,
say that we're
are
all
we being
women and we're all
racist?
equal, then
I don't
why?
care.
Racist today?
Then
I
why
don't
would
care.
you be
Racist, but that's not fair.
black?
Oh my goodness. You being black has nothing to do with a goddamn thing. It's a typical male response. You will use anything to try to speak over women because you are so misogynistic. You have no interest in letting other women speak. You have no interest in being respectful to women. You have no interest in any of that. It's your way or the highway. It's always been that way, Blossom. I'm sorry, you lost the entire argument, Blossom, though, when you brought up your race. It has nothing to do with that. And you know it. You're just using that so people can shut up. Like, oh my God, someone's calling me racist. I have to shut up because that's what you've inherently want white people to do, is shut up because you said the only black person in the room is talking. Who are you again? Right.
Whether it's first place or 5th place, it's a sad thing. And many of you self-proclaimed feminists, you say that you stand for uplifting women, but at the end of the day, biologically, you are male, and so that is sad that you're taking that spot, or you're advocating for taking that spot away from a biological female.
The respect.
I don't think they
What
know
did I
how to
say
give
wrong?
the
No,
respect.
Well, some of them
I don't
do.
think
wrong?
Some of them are being respectful.
You're a trans woman, you're biologically male. Is any of that wrong? Okay.
Exactly. None of you could say anything because you are biologically male. See, that's the thing. You get so upset. Stassi, number one, I think has to really dive in and figure out why she is so insecure when anyone brings up the fact that biologically she is male. Unpack that, sweetie, because it's not a good look. You are so insecure. You can read it all over your entire face. You have to let everybody in the crowd know that we're invited here as a woman and you want the respect. She's not saying anything wrong. She's saying factual things. She said you are biologically male. There's nothing wrong with that. You are chromosomally XY. You'll never be able to have a productive conversation when your insecurities pour out of you more than you're pouring out of those genes.
The transgender movement is imposing its ideology on the younger generation.
Okay, Okay, so personally, I don't really think it's the transgender movement imposing its ideology on kids so much more as a lot of people who act on behalf of the transgender movement, trying to kind of do the whole, I guess, speak over us, speak for us. You know, we have a lot of people who will come up and say very weird, gross things to kids or about kids, and then, you know, they'll claim trans, but at the end of the day, like, a lot of trans women really don't, like, hold, like, I don't know, we're not, how do I say it, perverted in that way. When someone talks about like a kid, like openly talks about like a kid's genitalia in a place full of kids, you know, and then they're talking about, oh, well, I'm representative of trans women. Well, no, you're not, because most trans women that I know, like none of you ladies would ever even think about doing something so disgusting. And so do I think it's the transgender movement imposing its ideology? No, because I also think at some point, you know, you can't force someone cis or trans, but I will say I think you can, you know, make someone think something about themselves, you know, a young, impressionable kid. But at the end of the day, I really don't think that's on the trans movement. And I don't think you should judge all of trans people for that mistake, because similarly, back in the day, there was a lot of propaganda about gay men doing that. And we now completely agree, you know, gay men don't really do that. And you know, we're kind of sliding back on that a bit due to some cases. But I think it's kind of unfair to put the entire trans space onto that they're grooming kids or whatever bubble. Even if, you know, I've said and I've protested about certain things like that, and I do agree about things like that still, I haven't changed my mind on that. However, I just don't think it's all of the trans community's fault, and I don't think trans people as a whole should be punished and suffer because of the actions of a few weirdo people.
The problem that I have with the trans community is its complacency in the fact of these bad apples. So I have been calling out these people for a while. Blair White has been doing it for a while. There are other creators in the LGBTQ space that are calling out these bad apples. And every time that we do, we are put in this category of transphobic, we're hateful, we're this, we're that. So we have to understand that if you are complacent in allowing these bad apples that you know are doing something wrong to continue to do something wrong, the Latinos, the people who are trans activists, who are, you know, wanting things for the trans community that trans people haven't even asked for, if you're not calling them out and you're being complacent, you are just as guilty as the people doing it. And so whilst I can understand what you're saying about not blaming the trans community, I blame the trans community for, number one, making people like Blair White seem hateful. I've been doing this on TikTok for a while, and I have a plethora of people who just don't like me because of the fact that I'm not going to stand for it at all. That's where I blame the trans community for not standing up and being complacent with all of the nonsense going on.
I didn't know a single gay person. I didn't know a single trans person. In fact, some of the ideology was pushed against me. And I started transitioning medically when I was 24. So I waited a really long time. I expressed my gender identity through the things that I wore and like my just like other secondary things in my appearance, but I waited to make that decision. And if I would have had the opportunity, it probably would have saved me from a lot of things like eating disorder treatments and self-harm and mental health crises. Because to be quite transparent with you guys, since I've come out as trans and I've owned my truth and I've started medically transitioning, everything's gone up.
This is the dangerous type of rhetoric that is being spread out there that I absolutely need to put a stop to. Stassi, transitioning is not a Band-Aid fix-it for your mental health crises. Your eating disorder is not tied to being trans. You had an eating disorder because you had mental health issues. So I think that we really need to stop tying all of these things to transness and how if you transition, then all of a sudden, you know, it will make your life better, because transitioning is not a Band-Aid fix-it. So if you have, you know, ideation, that is a problem all in and of itself. Going along the lines of saying that like, oh, life will just pop out with sunshines and rainbows when you transition is the same thing that was sold to Chloe Cole, who is a detransitioner. And it was, oh, all of the body image issues that I have is going to be fixed if I transition. And come to find out, that wasn't the case. And now there is so many other problems that these detransitioners have to deal with, permanently altering your body. And so I think the rhetoric that really truly is so dangerous is tying the fact that transitioning is going to be a fix-it and save my life, and it's going to take away all of my other mental health crises, and it will make everything better. There are so many other things that people are mistaking for being trans when that's just simply not the case. That's why the detransitioner rate is going to continue to go up.
Denying trans people healthcare is a human rights violation.
Oh, interesting.
I'm curious.
I don't think that anybody should be denied health care. I don't think that the health care between men and women are the same, or cis women, trans women. It's between men and women. Everyone should have the opportunity to get health care. I don't feel like it should be subsidized for trans people. I don't feel like in the military they're paying for sex change operations and gender affirming care. I don't believe that should be the case at all. But if it's the same type of health care that we all need, like we get the flu, we break our arm, we need glasses, I don't feel like anybody should be discriminated for basic human rights. We all deserve basic human rights, but I don't think that one side deserves more or special care than any of the other.
Can I ask for clarification?
Yeah, what would you like clarified? Which part?
So it's because I was on board, but I see kind of what you're doing, like dancing around gender healthcare, and for me that is a life-saving healthcare, and that's not up to opinion really. That's my personal experience with it. So you believe that we should be where I think the prompt is more directed into like, should trans people have access to trans healthcare?
Like, should you be allowed to transition, things like that. And on that note, you brought the military. That's why I thought it was very silly when people were like, oh, well, we shouldn't allow it because it's so expensive, it's draining our money. Well, let's put in this perspective. Trans healthcare, when it comes to government insurance, makes up about, I think, $13 million.
So I'm going to stop the video right there. So basically, my opinion on the healthcare situation is that if private insurance companies, let's say I go out and I get, health insurance through United Healthcare or whatever, Blue Cross Blue Shield, whatever, and I'm paying a premium every single month. Like I am taking it out of a work paycheck or I am paying for it out of pocket, which I do. Private insurance companies covering trans healthcare is up to their discretion, and I believe that's totally fine. Where I draw the line is where government funded insurance companies, Medicaid, all of those things should not be providing such health care because that is American taxpayer dollars going to fund gender transitions. So if you are taking money out of your paycheck to pay for health care and you decide to transition and your private insurance is being used, go right ahead. You pay for it. That is your money that you are paying into an insurance company. Get your money out of it. But government funded ones, absolutely not, because American taxpayers should not be on the hook for someone or a plethora of people's gender transition. The thing is I get it that there's a lot of, trans people who are on the poorer scale of things. And this is what I have to say about that. You cannot be a victim to your circumstance, okay? So if you are not in a great place, job-wise, if you're not in a great place, money-wise, then I suggest doing the absolute most that you can to build a better situation for yourself. And that's exactly what I did. And maybe people don't agree with what I do for work as a living, being a content creator of multiple kinds, like people will be like, oh, well, like you sold yourself to make the money. But at the end of the day, like I did what I had to do to make money, to be able to fund my transition, to be able to do all of that stuff. And so while yes, my insurance, covers my hormone pills and I pay a copay to that, I pay a almost $1,000 premium every single month. And so I am putting money into a insurance company for me to be able to get the access to the healthcare that I need. Overall, though, I do feel like this was a good conversation. Besides, for the majority of it, the trans women talking over the biological women, I truly feel like we will not get very far if you continue to insert your misogyny into every conversation that you have around trans issues, because you're just further proving the point that you are never going to escape the allegations of that you will always be a man, because you are doing just such. Feminism starts with women. And I am very pro-woman. I've always been very pro-woman. I will definitely protect women to all costs. And obviously, I would hope, like, in the same regard, that they would stand up for me in a case where I needed standing up for. I just think it's where we are not equal and we're asking for more and we are inserting ourselves in the 99% of the world's population that is the issue. But overall, I do think that this was a productive conversation. They never asked me to be on these things. I wonder why. I mean, I have a following, so I better be invited in the next one or we're going to have some issues.